I knew something was wrong the moment my key didn't fit the lock. It was a small detail at first. A hesitation. The kind that makes your hand freeze on the doorknob, like your body senses betrayal before your brain can name it. I tried again. The key scraped but wouldn't turn. I pulled it out, stared at it, as if it had suddenly forgotten who I was. Then I saw it. The sticker on the door. A small red rectangle with the words, "Access for real estate only." And just below it, a white sign staked into my front lawn. Sold. At first I thought someone had made a mistake. That this was for the house next door. That somehow there had been a mix-up. But the man who walked out of my living room holding a clipboard looked at me like I was the intruder. "Hi there," he said, adjusting his jacket. "Can I help you? Can I help you?" This was my house. My porch. My doormat that said "Home Sweet Home," the one I bought 15 years ago at a church sale. I didn't say anything. My lips moved but nothing came out. Then I heard my phone ring. "Daniel." I picked up, voice trembling. "What's going on?" He hesitated. That pause, that guilty kind of silence you can't unhear. "Mom, I meant to tell you this weekend. We sold the house." My stomach dropped. "You sold my house?" I whispered. "Without telling me?" "It was for the best," he said quickly, like he'd rehearsed it. "You've been here too long, Mom. It's too much for you now. We already arranged for you to move in with us for a while. With us. To their home. A guest in someone else's life." I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I looked past the man on my porch into the house I had built from nothing. The hallway where I'd marked Daniel's height with pencil every birthday. The kitchen where I'd cooked meals through grief and laughter. The window where I sat and watched him drive off to college. Everything still looked the same. But somehow, I was no longer part of it. Not even a phone call. Not even a conversation. Just a quiet transaction that erased me like I was a mistake they needed to undo. I hung up the phone. The man with the clipboard asked again. "Ma'am, are you all right?" I wanted to tell him this wasn't just a house. It was the last place on earth that still knew my name. But instead I turned around and walked back to my car. The grocery bags in my trunk were still warm. Like the life I had been living just 30 minutes ago still thought I belonged to it. I didn't drive home. I sat in the car, engine off, hands wrapped around the steering wheel like it might anchor me to something solid. The groceries in the trunk had started to sweat. Milk growing warm, apples knocking gently against the paper bag. But I couldn't move. What do you do when the place that held your entire life no longer recognizes you? I thought about the first day I walked into that house. I was 28, newly widowed, and barely holding it together. The bank loan was a miracle. The down payment came from my mother's wedding ring, pawned with more tears than I'd ever admit. But when I stepped onto that creaky porch and opened that front door for the first time, I said out loud, "This is ours now, baby. We'll be okay." Daniel was 3. He had peanut butter on his chin and called the hallway the tunnel. We slept on air mattresses the first month. I cooked on a 2-burner stove that sparked when you turned it too fast. And every single night I felt proud. Even through the exhaustion. Even through the loneliness. Because I was giving him roots. So what does it mean when your own roots are ripped out quietly? Like weeds no one wants to see anymore? I drove to a gas station. Sat in the parking lot for 43 minutes. At some point I texted Daniel. "When did you decide this?" A few minutes passed. Then, "It's been a few weeks. We just didn't want to stress you out. We just didn't want to stress you out." That's the language of people who believe their comfort is more important than your consent. When I finally returned to the house, the real estate agent was gone. But the sticker was still there. So were the cardboard boxes in the living room, my living room, each labeled with neat handwriting. Books, linens, kitchen, keep, kitchen, donate. They'd started packing already. I walked in slowly. The air felt thinner. As if someone had opened all the windows and let the soul of the place drift out while I wasn't looking. On the dining table sat a folder. Inside, the paperwork. Sale agreement. Power of attorney. Signed. By me. I had signed them weeks ago. Trusting Daniel when he said it was just for paperwork convenience in case of emergency. I hadn't read the fine print. I had wanted to believe he was helping. But now I realized I wasn't being protected. I was being handled. In the kitchen, my casserole dish was missing. The one with the chipped corner I never replaced. The one I use for Daniel's favorite baked ziti. The one he said reminded him of home. I opened the cabinet. Inside was a note taped to the shelf. We boxed up the kitchen stuff to donate. You don't need to cook anymore, Mom. We'll take care of meals. You don't need to cook anymore. They were trying to retire me from my own life. I walked upstairs, slow, careful, like I was stepping through someone else's house. My room was still intact, but stripped. Closet empty. Sheets pulled off. My favorite sweater folded on the chair, as if placed there for me to grab on the way out. This wasn't a transition. This was an extraction. They had made space for me in their lives by removing me from my own. And the worst part? They called it love. They said it with softness, with good intentions, with "we just want what's best for you." But love without permission isn't love. It's control dressed in compassion's clothing. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at the wall across from me, the one with faint outlines where pictures used to hang. Daniel's high school graduation. His first car. A photo of us at the lake the summer after he got his job offer. He said I looked proud in that picture. I still am. But now that pride carries a shadow. Because I didn't raise him to forget. I didn't work double shifts, skip meals, patch his jeans with trembling fingers, just to be erased when the ink dried on a closing document. I thought about packing, about calling a lawyer, about screaming. Instead, I stood up, walked downstairs, took one of the boxes labeled Keep, the one filled with linens. I emptied it. Then I filled it with the only things I was taking. The pencil-marked height chart I peeled off the hallway wall. The chipped casserole dish I found behind a stack of pans. The photo of me at the lake. And I carried that box to my car. Not because they told me to leave, but because I chose to go. This time on my terms. The room they gave me didn't have a door. Just a curtain. Thin. Beige. Hung on a tension rod that bowed in the middle. The mattress on the floor was firm. Not uncomfortable, but low. Low like expectation. Low like a space meant for waiting, not living. "This is just temporary," Emily said with a smile too tight. "We'll make it cozy." But the corners of the room were already closing in. There were boxes everywhere. Not mine. Holiday decorations. Old gym equipment. A printer still in the original packaging. They had cleared a path, not made a space. I set my small box down in the corner, my casserole dish, the photo, the growth chart strip. I placed the photo on top of a stack of workout DVDs. It slid down immediately, face down. I didn't bother picking it up. That night, we had dinner at the kitchen island. Daniel and Emily talked about the sale, how fast the process had been. "She's a miracle worker, our agent," Emily beamed. "Honestly, we didn't think it would go through that smoothly. The market's wild right now." I nodded. Sipped water. There were 3 place settings. No candle. No questions. No one asked how I was settling in. Emily had made something vegan, lentils and zucchini with tahini sauce. No one asked if I liked lentils. They assumed. After dinner, Daniel excused himself to take a call. Emily handed me a dish rag. "I usually clean up after," she said, her tone light. "But if you want to help, feel free." I took the rag. Wiped counters that didn't feel like mine. Scrubbed a sink that echoed. There was a dish towel hanging on the oven that said, "Bless this mess." I didn't feel blessed. I felt boxed. Filed. Shelved. The next morning, I woke to footsteps overhead. Children laughing, cartoons blaring from the TV. No one came to check on me. No knock. No good morning. I pulled the curtain aside. Stood in the hallway listening. The kitchen smelled like waffles. I followed the scent. Emily looked up, startled. "Oh, good morning. We didn't want to wake you." The kids were hungry. There were 5 plates on the table. 4 full. 1 empty. I poured myself some coffee. It was already lukewarm. Daniel walked in wearing his work shirt, kissed Emily's cheek, ruffled one child's hair, and walked past me like I was furniture. He used to hug me every morning before school. He used to call me Mama. Now I was Mom. In that clipped, professional tone people use with receptionists and housekeepers. Later that day, I tried to do a load of laundry. The machine was full. Not with clothes. With storage. Inside were winter blankets and Halloween decorations, shoved in tight. I didn't touch them. I walked back downstairs, sat on the mattress, and stared at the thin rod holding up the curtain. It swayed slightly when someone walked past. I picked up my phone, typed a message, deleted it, typed again. Hey Daniel, can we talk? No response. That night, Emily knocked lightly on the wall. Hey, so we're having a little dinner party this weekend. Just a few couples. You're welcome to join, but it might be a tight fit in the kitchen, so if you're more comfortable staying down here. Totally up to you. Totally up to me. Like I had options. Like I hadn't already been moved like a piece of furniture from room to room. I nodded. Of course. I'll stay out of the way. She smiled. You're the best. And then she was gone. The next day, I sat in the garden behind their house. A small patch of grass, some hedges, and a patio with a broken chair. I brought out my box, opened it, took out the photo, propped it up on the windowsill. Daniel, age 10. His smile wide. My arm around him. I remembered that day clearly. He had spilled juice all over the back seat. I wasn't even mad. I told him. Some messes are worth the memory. I wondered if he remembered that. I wondered if he remembered me. The me who stayed up with him when he had strep throat. The me who saved for months to buy him the sneakers everyone else had. The me who never once missed a parent-teacher meeting. Or had I become just Mom, the woman in the basement, the polite presence they tolerated? I looked at the growth chart in the box, ran my finger over the faded pencil lines. Daniel, 5 feet 2 inches, age 12, wants to be tall like Dad. There was no line for me, no measurement for what I'd lost. That night, I stared at the ceiling above my mattress, heard laughter drift down. The party had started. Music, glasses clinking. At one point, someone laughed so hard they coughed. Then more laughter. And none of it included me. I turned on the lamp by the mattress, took out a notebook, and wrote, I am not a guest in my own story. I am the author. And it's time I write myself a way out. The moment I decided to leave wasn't dramatic.
No shouting.
No suitcase hurled down the stairs. Just a quiet morning. A spoon clinking gently against a mug. And the realization that I was no longer waiting to be welcomed. Emily had just finished a phone call in the kitchen. Her voice was chipper, performative, like someone playing the role of the good daughter-in-law. Yes, of course she's here. But don't worry, it's temporary. She won't be staying long. I stood behind the half wall just out of sight. I didn't flinch, didn't breathe, only listened. When she hung up, I stepped into the kitchen. She jumped slightly, then smiled too quickly. Oh, didn't see you there. I smiled back, but it didn't reach my eyes. I poured coffee, stirred it once, then said softly, You're right. I won't be staying long. She froze, just for a moment, then recovered, said, Oh, I didn't mean. But I had already walked away. That afternoon I made a list. Not a grocery list. Not a to-do list. A leave list. It was short. Just the essentials. The box I came with. Few clothes. My watercolor set I hadn't touched in years. The savings account I had opened long ago in my name only just in case. Turns out just in case finally arrived. Over the next few days I moved quietly. I withdrew cash in small amounts. Visited a storage facility near the edge of town. Looked at listings for rentals and small homes. Nothing big. Just enough. Enough room for my voice. For my breath. For my peace. At night, I pretended to sleep while laughter drifted from upstairs. During the day, I pretended to listen as Emily explained how busy things were lately. I smiled when Daniel said, We're just trying to figure out a schedule. A schedule? For what? For fitting me in? No, thank you. I started leaving early in the mornings. Walked to a local park with a small pond. Fed breadcrumbs to the ducks. Watched the trees sway. Watched old couples walk hand in hand without speaking. And I thought maybe I still have time. One afternoon, I met a woman at the bakery near the post office. She had gray streaks in her braid and a paint stain on her sleeve. We struck up a conversation over lemon bars and chamomile tea. Her name was June. She ran watercolor workshops for women who needed a place to be. I didn't ask what she meant. I already knew. I showed up the next week. Painted a single lemon on a blue plate. It was imperfect, heavy, too yellow. She smiled and said, Looks like something real. That night I sat in my basement room, curtain drawn, walls pulsing faintly with upstairs music, and packed my bag. Not angrily, not tearfully, just with certainty. I taped the growth chart to the inside of the box, folded the photo, wrapped the casserole dish in one of Emily's unused holiday placemats. I left a note on the bed. Thank you for the space. I found one of my own. I didn't say where I was going, didn't ask for permission, didn't apologize for leaving early. I left at sunrise. The sky was that soft kind of blue that makes everything look clean, hopeful, like nothing had been broken, only rearranged. The air smelled like autumn, like endings, but not the kind that ache, the kind that make room. By noon I had the key to a small cottage just outside town. 1 bedroom, a porch, a tree with branches that reached toward the window like they were waving. It was quiet. It was mine. The first night I didn't sleep on a mattress on the floor. I slept in a bed I made, with sheets I picked, next to a lamp I turned off when I was ready. And in the stillness I whispered aloud, "This isn't running away. This is arriving." It took Daniel 4 days to realize I was gone. On the 5th he knocked on my new door. I was trimming herbs on the windowsill, basil, rosemary, mint. The sunlight poured in like honey across the wooden floor. I didn't rush to answer. The knock came again, louder this time. I opened the door slowly. There he stood, shirt wrinkled, eyes tired, guilt clinging to him like a shadow he couldn't shake. "Hi, Mom," he said, voice low. "Can we talk?" I nodded, not warmly, not coldly, just open. He stepped in, glanced around the small living room. His eyes paused on the shelf where I'd placed the casserole dish and the photo of us at the lake. He didn't smile. "You didn't tell anyone where you were," he said, sitting at the edge of the chair like he didn't know if he was welcome. "I didn't think anyone would ask," I replied. He looked down, hands clasped. "I'm sorry." I let the silence hold that sentence. I didn't fill it, didn't rescue him from it. "I didn't realize how much we were pushing you out," he said. "Didn't realize," I repeated. "Or didn't care?" He winced. "I thought we were helping," Emily said. "This isn't about Emily," I interrupted softly. "This is about you." He didn't speak for a moment. Then, "I thought you'd be relieved. You always did so much alone. I thought maybe this time, you'd let someone take over." I stared at him. "You didn't take over. You took away. You made decisions for me, moved me like a chair, packaged my life like a set of winter clothes no one wears anymore." He looked ashamed, and he should. "I didn't mean to make you feel." He trailed off, searching for a word. "Invisible," I offered. "Uninvited? Like a burden." His eyes filled, but he blinked fast. "I was just trying to do the right thing." "Then you should have asked me what I wanted." He nodded slowly. "You're right. I'm sorry." The apology landed. Not fully, not perfectly, but enough. I walked to the kitchen, poured us both tea, set it in front of him. He stared into the cup like it might tell him what to say next. "I saw the storage boxes," he said quietly. "You kept the growth chart." I nodded. "That wall raised you. I wasn't about to let it be painted over for staging." He laughed softly, then looked up at me, serious again. "Do you want to come back?" he asked. "We could make space, fix the room, put up a door." I looked at him, at the boy I raised, at the man I still love, but no longer need to follow. "No," I said gently. "I don't want to come back." He nodded again, swallowed hard. "I understand." "I don't need you to understand," I said, voice calm. "I just need you to accept it." We sat in quiet for a while, the kind that used to feel heavy. Now it felt like breathing. He finished his tea, set the cup down carefully. "I'll call more, visit more." "You don't have to," I replied. "But if you want to come as a guest, not as someone trying to manage me." He smiled faintly. "I'll try." I walked him to the door. He hesitated. "I was wrong," he said. "You were never a burden. You were the reason I had anything at all." I touched his hand. "Then carry that with you, and treat others better because of it." He nodded, stepped out into the afternoon light. I closed the door behind him, Not loudly, not finally, just firmly. And then I turned back to my home, my chair, my herbs, my photo. I sat down with my tea and whispered something I hadn't said in years. I'm proud of me. The hardest part wasn't leaving. It was staying gone. Because there's a strange silence that comes after you choose yourself. A space where you wait to feel guilt. But it never arrives. Only quiet. Only peace. Only the slow return of your own rhythm. In the mornings, I no longer woke to the thump of footsteps overhead or cartoon voices bleeding through the floorboards. I woke to light. The soft rustle of tree branches against the side of the house. The kettle whistling gently. My own breath steady. I started baking again, not out of duty, not for anyone's approval. Just because I missed the way cinnamon made the kitchen smell like home. I tried new recipes. Some burned. Some flopped. Some made me hum without even realizing. And that was enough. One afternoon, I walked to the little art store on the corner and bought myself a proper sketchbook. The girl at the register said, "Trying something new?" I smiled. "No. Something old I forgot I loved." Back at the house, I painted lemons again. This time brighter. They still weren't perfect, but they looked alive. So did I. I planted a few herbs in clay pots on the back porch. Sat with a book every afternoon. Sometimes I read. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I just listened to the birds and let the quiet do the healing. The phone didn't ring often. Daniel sent a few messages. Updates about the kids. A photo of their new minivan. I replied when I wanted. Other times I let the message sit. I wasn't angry anymore. Just uninterested in stretching myself thin to maintain a relationship that had no room for me in the first place. Emily never reached out. That was fine. I didn't need a reconciliation. I needed restoration. And slowly I found it. Not in grand gestures, but in the simple act of remembering what I liked. I bought raspberry jam because I liked it. Not because Daniel hated seeds. I hung wind chimes outside my window and let them sing me to sleep. I wore my hair the way I liked it. No more tight buns or easy-to-manage ponytails. I became a woman again. Not a mother. Not a guest. Not a fixture. Person. The days didn't rush. They unfolded. I met June again at the bakery. She waved me over. "You look like someone who sleeps well these days," she said with a wink. "Ido," I laughed. For the first time in years. She invited me to a garden circle. Just a group of women who gather once a month to talk, plant things, and listen to each other without fixing anything. I went. I brought lemon bars. I sat in a lawn chair with women whose names I didn't know a month ago, but whose stories echoed parts of mine. One woman said, "I raised 3 boys and none of them remember my birthday, so I started throwing myself a party. I buy the cake I like. I light the candles. And I sing if I feel like it." We all laughed. We all nodded. We all understood. There's a different kind of strength in choosing joy without permission. And that's what I was doing now. Choosing it. Choosing me. Every day. I wasn't waiting for a better offer. I wasn't hoping they'd change. I wasn't rehearsing my pain like a speech. I was baking, painting, resting, and slowly forgiving, not because they deserved it but because I deserved peace. One morning I found a letter in the mailbox. No name. No return address. Just a folded sheet of paper in familiar handwriting. "Daniel." Inside, a single sentence. "I didn't realize you were the home." I sat on the porch. Read it once. Then again. Then placed it under my teacup to stop it from flying away. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed and let the sun warm my face like it was the first time it remembered I was there. If you've ever sat in a room and wondered when they stopped seeing you, if you've ever heard laughter from the other side of the door and realized no one thought to call your name, if you've ever smiled and nodded and folded yourself smaller just to keep the peace, then I want you to know, you are not alone. And more than that, you were never the problem. They sold my house before telling me. They planned it like a kindness, like convenience. But it wasn't convenience. It was quiet erasure. It was a way to remove me from the picture without the mess of confrontation. And for a long time I thought maybe they were right. Maybe I had held on too long. Maybe I was in the way. Maybe I was just too much. But the truth is I wasn't too much. I was too familiar. Too steady. Too easy to overlook. 'Cause I was always there. The one who never needed to be asked twice. The one who remembered every birthday, every detail, every allergy. The one who gave without condition and stayed without recognition. But even the strongest roots will rot when the soil turns cold. So I left. Not to punish. Not to make a statement. I left because I deserved better than being managed like a calendar event. I deserved more than being the name they use when it's convenient and forget when the camera flashes. And so do you. You who has always shown up. You who bends to fit every space but your own. You who is tired of being the helper. The background. The safe one. Let me tell you something I wish I'd heard sooner. You don't have to stay where your presence is only tolerated. You don't have to beg for a chair at a table you built. You don't have to soften your light so they don't feel small. You can choose peace. You can choose space. You can choose silence. Not as surrender but as sovereignty. Because sometimes walking away is not a retreat. It's a return. A return to yourself. To your breath. To your own name said kindly in your own voice. And it doesn't require applause. It doesn't require anyone to understand. It only requires truth. And truth, my dear, has a quiet kind of power. Now I wake up and I know where I am. I am not waiting to be asked. I am not hoping to be remembered. I am not performing motherhood like a duty on repeat. I am living. And yes, I still think of them. Of the house. Of the way my name sounded when he used to say mama. But I think of those things like weather. Moments that pass through. Some warm. Some wild. Some wounding. And then I go make tea. I water my herbs. I paint a crooked lemon and call it joy. So if this story finds you, if you're listening in a quiet room, wondering if it's too late to start over, it's not. Start with one shelf. One window. One recipe no one else likes but you. Start by saying no without explanation. Start by sitting at your own table, even if it feels too quiet at first. And then, in time, maybe you'll say what I now say out loud. They let me go. And it was the kindest thing they never meant to do. It's quiet here most nights. No television buzzing from the next room. No footsteps rushing up the stairs. Just the sound of crickets. The wind brushing against the siding. The occasional creak of wood adjusting to the evening chill. I used to think silence meant something was missing. Now, I know it just means everything unnecessary has left. Last week I hosted a dinner. Not for a birthday. Not for a holiday. Just because I wanted to. The table was small. Just 4 chairs. 3 guests. All women. One had left a marriage after 32 years. One had been forced into early retirement and told to make room for younger energy. The third was a quiet neighbor who'd always waved politely, but never had a reason to knock. Until I gave her one. We laughed over soup and lemon cake. Past stories like salt shakers. Not needing to fix anything. Just to be heard. Just to be real. At one point I raised my glass and said something I hadn't planned. To the women who stayed too long. Who gave too much. Who thought being invisible was the price of being loved. May we never shrink again. May we never wait to be chosen. And we clinked glasses. And I meant every word. After they left, I didn't clean up right away. I let the dishes sit. I let the candle burn low. I sat at the table alone and looked at the empty plates. And instead of loneliness, I felt full. Because the life I was living wasn't small. It was intentional. I wasn't waiting for a wedding. Or a grandchild. Or someone to say, thank you for all you've done. I was living without performance. And if you're still here, still listening, maybe that's what you've been waiting to hear. You don't need a permission slip to begin again. You don't need anyone to say you deserve better. You already know. And if you've forgotten, let me remind you. Your story doesn't end in the kitchen while others toast in the spotlight. It doesn't end at the basement door. Or in a room with no window. Or in a folding chair labeled extra. Your story ends where you say it does. And it begins again every time you choose yourself. So here's your invitation. Not to fight. Not to prove. But to return. To the version of you who laughs with her mouth open. Who takes up space at the table. Who buys the shoes she actually likes. To the you who doesn't explain. Who doesn't ask to be seen. 'Cause she already is by herself. And if you need a place to start, let it be this. Tonight set one plate. Light one candle. Make the thing only you like. Pour a glass of something cold, or warm, or sweet. And when you sit down to eat, don't look around for who's missing. Look at who stayed. You. That's who stayed. And that's who matters now. If this story found you, stay with us. Subscribe to Invisible No More. Because your voice is not too late. Because your seat was never supposed to be in the corner. And if you feel ready, leave a comment. Even if it's just one word. Still here. We see you. And we're saving your seat. Always.